Border Earthworks has 16 push-pull equipped twin-engine scrapers in its fleet. Push-pull loading improves loading time and helps to ensure consistent payloads by combining the traction and power of two scrapers to load one scraper at a time. Safe and efficient push-pull loading depends on teamwork, cooperation, and communication between the lead and rear scraper operators. In general, the lead scraper sets the pace of loading and hauling. It is the responsibility of the rear scraper operator to match this pace to the best of his or her ability. While variations in workflow and ground conditions require an operator to exercise his or her judgment when push-pulling, the general procedure can be broken down into a few steps.
To push-pull or not. The lead scraper operator is responsible for selecting the location of the cut and deciding whether to push-pull, load, or self-load. As an operator, your first priority should always be safety. Examples of when push-pull loading may not be suitable or requires extreme caution include trimming slopes. While still possible to trim gentle slopes while push-pulling, the risk of undercutting the toe of slope generally outweighs the benefits of push-pulling. Edges. Cutting near edges, especially those on disturbed ground or stockpile, requires extreme caution. The risk of a rollover or sliding down a slope increases when push-pulling, as rear scraper's alignment during its cut is at the mercy of the lead scraper, but will not be identical to that of the lead scraper. It is very important for both operators to familiarize themselves with this effect. Rolling, undulating ground. Push-pull loading should not be done across large depressions or hills. If the height of the lead scraper changes drastically compared to the rear scraper while the bale is under tension, the bale or hook is at risk of breaking. The rear scraper losing contact with its push block and beginning to climb up the rear of the lead scraper is another risk of push-pulling across major elevation changes. Inadequate spaces or obstacles. It is important to ensure that there is enough material for both scrapers to haul a full load without undercutting or hauling incorrect material. As a lead scraper operator, you are responsible for planning each cut to ensure that there is enough room for both machines to load and unhook safely. You should not place yourself in a position where the rear scraper has to rapidly transition from loading to sharply turning out of the cut area while still connected, as the lead scraper is unable to continue traveling parallel with the cut.
The lead scraper operator should begin gently cutting as if he or she were self-loading, ensuring that the scraper has downshifted to second gear prior to applying the transmission lock and releasing the cushion hitch. If your partner has kept up to you, it is most efficient to continue gently cutting and allow your partner to begin pushing without either scraper having to come to a stop. This is generally referred to as tagging on the fly. Although less efficient, it is acceptable practice for the lead scraper to begin its cut and then come to a stop, allowing the rear scraper to catch up and begin pushing. This is a preferred method when one or both operators are relatively inexperienced, or if the two scrapers have fallen out of synchronization. Prior to pushing, the rear scraper will align itself with the lead scraper and slowly allow the scraper to downshift to second gear prior to making contact between the rear scraper's push block and the front scraper's beaver tail. Note that it is not acceptable to push on any part of a scraper other than the beaver tail and could result in serious damage to either machine. When tagging up, it is best practice to adjust the angle, height of the tractor such that leading edge, or the lowermost portion of your push block, makes contact with the lead scraper's beaver tail. Doing so makes use of the full range of motion, or leverage, of your push block, which will make for a smooth connection between the two machines. Now that both machines are connected, it is good practice for both operators to make eye contact, as the lead scraper operator may wish to communicate a portion of the cut area, which has been cut to design grade or other useful information. Lower your bale and begin pushing the lead scraper.
Loading lead scraper. While loading the lead scraper, the bulk of the power should be provided by the pushing scraper and the loading scraper should provide supplemental power. This includes minimal use of the lead scraper's rear engine. If this method is not applied, the lead scraper may end up separating from the rear scraper, which increases the risk of damage to either machine. As the lead scraper continues its load, it will become necessary and practical to apply progressively more power, especially in the rear engine, as traction increases due to the increased weight and reduced cut depth. In general, the lead scraper will transition to nearly full power as it completes its cut. As the lead scraper completes its load and has cleared its cutting edge from the ground, the operator should engage the cushion hitch and continue to apply power with both engines. The lead scraper is responsible for determining the path of the rear scraper and for maintaining a constant pace to ensure that the rear scraper is able to transition from the pushing lead scraper to being pulled smoothly.
When loading twin-engine scrapers, the procedure of switching from pushing to pulling in a smooth manner is referred to as transitioning. Transitioning is arguably the highest risk portion of push-pull loading and requires extra care and attention at all times. With the lead scraper finished loading and applying near full power with both engines, the rear scraper operator should reduce power in order to allow the lead scraper to begin traveling under its own power. The next step is to turn the tractor of the rear scraper a few degrees in either the left or right direction in order to create tension on the bale as it slides up the rail to make contact with the bale hook of the lead scraper.
Now that the loaded lead scraper is pulling the rear scraper, the loading procedure is much the same for the lead scraper. With the cushion hitch disabled, the rear scraper should lower its bowl in such a way as to begin its cut where the lead scraper completed its load. It is important to recognize that under most circumstances, the loaded lead scraper will have excellent traction, which means that while it is being pulled, there is enough power available for the rear scraper to take a deeper cut than intended. This surplus of power also makes it possible to overload the scraper. While earth-moving contracts are typically compensated on the volume of material moved, the extra volume moved through consistent overloading does not offset the safety risk and the impact to equipment service life.
Once the rear scraper has completed its load and engaged its cushion hitch, disconnecting requires that the bale not be under tension, as the hydraulics will not retract the bale to the upward position while under tension. In many cases, as the rear scraper completes its load and begins to apply full power with both engines, tension on the bale will be released enough for the bale to retract. There are instances, however, where disconnection requires more effort from the scraper operators. While there are multiple methods to making a smooth disconnection, a reliable way is for the rear scraper operator to apply maximum power with both engines, and for the lead scraper to reduce power slightly in order to allow the rear scraper to catch up and retract its bale. As the rear scraper completes its load and is raising its bowl, the lead scraper operator should be able to feel the reduction in load on the machine, as it is no longer assisting the rear scraper to load. As an operator, this change in load should be your cue to decrease engine power to help the rear scraper disconnect. Now that both scrapers are loaded and disconnected, the rear scraper should signal to the lead scraper that it is safe to disengage its transmission lock and continue to the haul road. This is most commonly done by the rear scraper turning its tractor a few degrees to the left such that the lead scraper operator can clearly see the bale in the retracted or upright position.
Other considerations. Due to the extreme amount of energy and torque that are applied when push-pull loading, connecting more than 2 scrapers is strictly forbidden and should never be attempted without the approval and direct visual supervision of a foreman. Accurate load counts are critical to our business, and it is a best practice to be in the habit of hitting your load counter as soon as you complete your cut and engage your cushion hitch. Minimizing wheel spin should be a priority while push-pulling, as it accelerates tire wear, wastes fuel, and has the potential to damage drivetrain components.